Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome once again to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgilla, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. James Bridgers, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Acting Deputy Chief of Public Health Services. We have a special guest today. His name is Paul Monteiro Jr. He is Maryland's Secretary of Service and Civic Innovation. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to you, Mr. County Executive.
Good afternoon, everybody who's here today. Thank you for joining us. This week, I want to focus on something new for Maryland, a first-in-the-nation plan for recent high school graduates to dedicate a year of service to their community paid for by the state. Each participant will be placed based on their interests to learn about at least $15 an hour and work at least 30 hours a week. Upon successful completion of the program, these young people also earn $6,000 toward tuition costs or as a cash stipend. Support coaches will help everyone in the program refine their post-service plans, whether they include college or career and continued service. This is an important initiative that Governor Moore announced on his first day in office. And I believe it's going to improve how the state provides post-high school education offerings and workforce development training, which is critical to Maryland's economic development efforts. But it's really critical to the people who are going to be in this program. Beyond providing high school graduates a way to make some money, this program is also providing them hope, guidance, and exposure to careers that span different disciplines and industries. We know that we've got an existing problem. Many kids leave high school absolutely unprepared for work. Too often, the only kids who are prepared for anything are the kids going on to college. Kids who aren't going to college and aren't in one of our couple of trade programs in the county don't necessarily see any way for how they move forward once they leave high school. And so this is an important step to kind of bridge kids from their final high school year to give them something to do and an opportunity to learn about working in a way that they didn't get while they were in school, and hopefully to guide them to employment that's going to be meaningful and give them a sense of possibility, which is what we desperately need young people to have. They have to believe that they can make their lives better. Currently, the state is preparing for the next group of teenagers to join this initiative and expanding the program. And we want to make sure that Montgomery County graduates are aware of these opportunities. So this week, I'm honored to welcome Maryland's Secretary of Service and Civic Innovation, Paul Monteiro Jr., to talk with us about the benefits of the program. So thank you for joining me today, Paul. The show is
Thank
yours.
you. Thank you very much, Mr. County Executive. I appreciate the invitation, and thanks for your leadership on many fronts. I'm honored to lead the new Department of Service and Civic Innovation. As the county executive mentioned, the first in the nation program of this sort that's building on the strong foundation left by AmeriCorps and other national service programs. Ours is designed to complement what is. And so it's structured where there is a living wage paid to our members. They get to choose where they serve as they try to discern where they fit following the completion of their high school career. And they can earn the living wage, gain hard and soft skills in whatever role they choose, nonprofit, public sector, or even a for-profit business for those who may want to start their own business one day. Giving them financial literacy consistently across their service term, starting with do you have a bank account, but all the way up to how do you manage your money well, including that completion award the county executive mentioned at the end of the term of service, $6,000 toward college or apprenticeship costs, if that's what they choose to do, or it can be taken as a cash stipend that's taxed, but a lump sum to help them get their first apartment, buy their first used car to start their work life, but not get stuck in what comes next following their high school career. Also making sure they're civically literate. We know from our members that they already see themselves as people that will be leaders in their community. And so giving them a baseline of civic literacy and understanding of how government works, and then also connecting them to caring, responsible adults, building a network that will help walk with them on their journey, even after they leave us. There are on-site mentors that walk with the member through their service term, that are at their service site. But we want to make sure they're caring, responsible adults walking with them even after they finish their term of service. As the county executive mentioned, we just announced the application portal go live for the second cohort that will start serving in the fall. And so the priority deadline for applications for individuals who wish to serve in the program is April 1st. And also host employers who say, I want to host some of these members at my organization, whether, again, public sector, private sector, nonprofit sector, labor unions. That deadline is also April 1st. And the application is online now. And I can drop it in the chat as well if anyone wants to see that. But very excited to talk more about this program as we scale up and grow to double our size in the next year and then in the following years. But this is a program that we hope inspires other states to look at how service can be a proven pathway to workforce, higher education, and also deal with some of the community challenges we're seeing in terms of service being in many ways one of the last things left that will bring people together beyond or without checking your worldview or your political persuasion. It's a proven pathway to deal with the challenge of senior isolation, and also something that will reach, I think, a cohort of young people that had to or had their educational career marked by COVID, where a couple years virtual, they maybe missed some of the milestones that prior cohorts of students had, and giving them this time and space to figure out where they fit and let their interests find out where they're aligned to an industry or a field of study. So thank you very much, Mr. County Executive, for letting me share about this program. We want to get the word out as broadly as possible to make sure we have a good crop of folks starting to serve in the fall.
Thank you, Secretary Montero. Members of the media, if you have any questions regarding the Maryland Corps Service Year option, this is your time to ask those questions. Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Any questions for the Secretary regarding this topic? I don't see any hands up. Going once, going twice. Questions for the Secretary? No questions? Well, Secretary Montero, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You can remain on the call or drop off. Thank you.
My pleasure. And the website is serve.maryland.gov, where the application is live. And then Maryland is spelled out. serve.maryland.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary.
So, yeah, thank you again for doing this. And I hope that after doubling it this year, we move to higher multiples in the coming years. There is a real need for this in the community. Even in Montgomery County, there are a lot of youth who are leaving high school and have no path forward. And that lack of confidence in a path forward, or the lack of a path forward, is something which is really destabilizing to young people. And so anything we can do to say, hey, there is a way for you to go, there are jobs we can train you for, that is just critically important. So thank you for taking this job on. Thank you for being here with me today.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
So now I'm going to talk about something that I've been talking about for a long time. And this is the issue around allowing counties more local autonomy to raise needed revenues. And before anybody panics at the word of raising needed revenues, the goal of what we're seeking in Annapolis is basically to do what Virginia does, which is put in place a series of special taxing districts that allow the county to raise revenues on commercial property for transportation projects that benefit the commercial property and not for other programs in the county budget. So it wouldn't go to fund social programs. It wouldn't go to fund things not related to transportation. The legislature may add education to the possibility of what the funds could be used for. But basically, it gives us the ability to create a differential rate that separates the residential property tax from the commercial property tax. I've been advocating for this reform for a long time. And I'll say that, when the governor had to announce that there was no money in the transportation fund, it kind of woke everybody up to the limitations of the current way that Maryland finances transportation. Even when the imaginary fund had $3 billion in it, there wasn't enough money in the fund to fund everybody's transportation projects. Baltimore's Red Line wasn't included, the Charles County Southern Connector, that wasn't included. Other people's major transit projects were not in that basket. And in that basket was not enough money to actually build any of the projects that we've been looking at. Montgomery County's been getting dribs and drabs of money over the years to try to build BRT, but never had the capacity to take on the project in a big way. So it's been really limiting for us. And in Virginia, it's been liberating for Virginia. Yesterday, MACO's legislative committee endorsed House Bill 919, a bill that allows county to set special property tax rates. And it allows us to differentiate between the commercial rate and the residential tax rate. Currently, they have to be the same. This bill would allow us to have a zero tax rate on residential for many of these things and focus the tax on the commercial side. And that's what they do in Northern Virginia. Municipalities have had this authority for a couple of decades now to set different rates in order to meet the demands of their residents and businesses. In 2024, it does not make much sense that the municipalities have this ability to fund infrastructure, but the counties do not. And it's time to grant Maryland counties the same autonomy that municipalities already have, and that the counties in Virginia have and use extensively, and that the District of Columbia has and uses extensively. I'll give you a quick example. In the District of Columbia, the residential property tax is 85 cents, 20 cents lower than our residential tax. The commercial property tax in Virginia goes up to $1.89, which is 85 cents higher than our commercial tax. And DC raises an enormous amount of money to build infrastructure out of that tax differential. And in Northern Virginia, in a place like Fairfax and Tyson's Corner, the property tax on commercial property goes up to $1.50. And they even have a BPO tax that adds $200 million to Fairfax's revenue from commercial businesses. And while we do have an energy tax, because I know some of you are going out there and say, hey, what about the energy tax? Virginia doesn't have one as big as ours. Yes, we have an energy tax, but the amount raised from commercial property is dwarfed by the amount that Virginia raises on their BPOL tax. So they get far more revenue from the private sector in Virginia, and they put that money to work to invest in infrastructure, and the infrastructure leads to economic development. For everybody who likes to talk about why aren't we doing what Virginia does, all you got to do is look at tax policy. If low taxes were the key to success, we'd be the location of everybody coming. That's not what's happening. It's not the low tax jurisdiction, it's the higher tax jurisdiction that makes public investments that's attracting business, not the low tax jurisdiction that hasn't been able to make public investments. So ponder that as you think about what we're going to be asking for. I want to thank Frederick County Delegate Chris Fair for introducing House Bill 919, and I appreciate my fellow county executives and state leaders for supporting this legislation. Additionally, I'm appreciative that Montgomery County Delegate Ryan Spiegel, along with Senator Nancy King, has submitted bills that further the goal of creating greater autonomy for local governments to develop transportation systems that meet regional needs. Specifically, House Bill 924 and Senate Bill 1126 would establish regional transportation authorities for the purpose of better coordinating transportation investments and management with our counterparts in the region. The bills recognize that the ability for local governments to generate revenue is key to making this work, just like Northern Virginia figured out 20 years ago. These bills include a provision requiring the Maryland Department of Transportation, in consultation with the comptroller, to study and report on the feasibility of creating local option transportation revenues to fund the regional transportation authorities. We have an opportunity this year to make the kind of changes at the state level that can be real game changers for counties across Maryland, and particularly us. The state has never been able to fully fund transportation needs, and this gives us an opportunity to move beyond that. And with a steady stream of resources, without a steady stream of resources, the county cannot apply for federal funds that require state and local match. And in the real world, our BRT has moved pathetically slowly. We've had this on the books for, I think, over a decade. And we've built no real BRT in this county yet. We've got a light version of it on 29, but we've never been able to raise the money. And we cannot go out and ask the federal government for funds that would substantially fund the project unless we can demonstrate that we can provide a local match. And without state support, and then without our ability to raise revenues locally, we do not qualify for these federal funds. So this would unlock access to a lot of federal money. Hopefully the state would be more willing to contribute if they knew that it was being matched. And it's an opportunity for us to go forward. In the 90s, both Fairfax and Montgomery counties faced similar challenges with state governments that couldn't fund critical infrastructure projects. Instead of doing nothing and hoping money would fall from the sky, which is the Montgomery County approach, the political and business leadership of Fairfax County went to a Republican-controlled Richmond to seek taxing authority so it could fund transportation projects that would drive development in Fairfax County. They won approval for the kind of transportation projects we desperately need here in Montgomery County. They're able to create the infrastructure that businesses wanted. They could deliver on their master plans. And, in great example, when they say they were going to build the Silver Line, they built the Silver Line. Every Northern Virginia county has BRT lines under construction right now. Our Purple Line is yet another several years or more away from being finished. It's been in the process for as long as I can remember, going back to talking about this in the early 2000s. We moved with absolutely no speed compared to what Virginia has been able to do. Even more importantly, their investment in transportation led to a wave of economic development that followed the investments in the transit needs. And the developers understood the value of their investments because, unlike the general fund and general taxes, they knew that every dime they paid to a transportation tax would build infrastructure where they needed the infrastructure to be. So if you were in Fairfax County, you knew that they would build the Silver Line, or they would build bus rapid transit. They'd make other transportation improvements that would actually make it feasible to support more economic development. Virginia had the courage to step up and make the political decision to take control of its fate while we continue to dither on whether or not developers would embrace the higher taxes or if it would thwart economic development. The river tells you hasn't thwarted economic development. Going across the river tells you that developers can live with this and still do really, really well. And we need to stop acting like this is going to be some, terrible thing to happen here. Building infrastructure, I think, would be a great thing to happen here. And doing it without having to hit the residents up for the money, I think would be even better. Developers across the river supported the innovative tax policies because they had that guarantee on where the money had to be used, and they knew they were going to benefit from it. And it clearly has worked. And this is important too. They did not pass the bulk of the burden onto their residents. They had the same discussion that people want to have here. Should we do this only on commercial property, or should they do it on their residents? And they made the same decision that I would make, which is they placed the bulk of the taxes on top of the commercial property who would benefit through redevelopment of their properties in order to take advantage of the infrastructure that was going to get built. Their commercial taxes dwarf what Montgomery County currently generates, and the investments they made with the money, I think, kind of speak for themselves. And they're just deliberate decisions they made led to the ability to keep their promises to developers about what they saw in the master plans and when they were going to come to fruition, things we're not able to do here. And the promised and delivered projects could be built and built on time. Obviously, we struggle to do that here too. So I'm hopeful that the legislation passes the General Assembly and it'll allow us to compete with Northern Virginia, and then the battle will move to the County Council, where they'd actually have to vote to implement taxes on the development community in order to provide the infrastructure. But I think, it's time for us to stop pretending that this is some kind of radical, strange idea. Anything that got through the Republican legislature and governor in Virginia, I assure you, was not a dangerous, crazy idea. They took the same view I would take, is this is going to stimulate economic development. It's an investment, not an expense, and we're going to do it. Hopefully other people will get the same idea on this side of the river. On another topic, last week we had Delegate Wims and Sgt Kepp on our weekly media briefing talking about Senate Bills 939 and 941, as well as House Bills 1111 and 1160. These pieces of legislation would establish new benchmarks for reckless driving. Anyone caught going more than 90 miles an hour would be in that group. The bills would also clarify what constitutes aggressive driving. Another bill in Annapolis, which we're supporting, House Bill 601 and Senate Bill 442, which specifically addresses street racing and exhibition driving. This bill will alter certain penalties and points assessed related to participation in a race or speed contest and prohibits a person from engaging in exhibition driving on any highway or private property that is used for driving by the public. I want to thank Delegates Foley, David Fraser-Odago, Ann Kaiser, Sarah Love, Julie Polakovich-Carr, Emily Shetty, Jared Solomon, Vaughn Stewart, Vogel, and Delegate Wilkins, and Delegate Ziegler for sponsoring the House bill, which has a hearing today in Annapolis. All these bills are very important for the General Assembly to pass. Just last week, we saw dangerous car meetups in Tacoma Park as well as other locations throughout the state. MCPD, along with state police and local municipalities, do a good job of finding out about these gatherings. And if they can get there before they begin, they can be effective at stopping them. But it is very difficult to stop them once they're in process, and it's obviously difficult to stop all of them. The few that get by are seen on the news, and then they infuriate residents, but I guess they encourage people to plan more of these events. So we want this lawlessness to stop. We want our residents to please notify us if they catch these gatherings forming by calling our police non-emergency number, 301-279-8000. We don't want residents calling 911 about these incidents unless a medical or police attention is immediately needed. I want to thank members of the General Assembly who are sponsoring and advocating for these bills. And I'm going to continue to support and encourage their passage. And these gatherings terrorize nearby residents, they hurt businesses, and quite frankly, it's only a matter of time before we see a mass casualty incident from this foolishness. And we need to stop it now before we get to that point. Excuse me. Different topic, Black History Month continues with an important event for our Black business owners on Tuesday, February 20th. The Black Collective will hold its free Black Business Expo at University's at Shady Grove Conference and Event Center in Rockville. The event will begin at 4 and run until 7:30. It will bring together at least 50 Black-owned businesses, nonprofits, and organizations, as well as government agencies for networking and educational panels. The expo supports the Black Collective's mission of bringing together business leaders to help improve how they can grow in Montgomery County. For too long, people of color didn't have access to the same resources as others, limiting their ability of achieving economic security. There are innovative tactics and techniques when it comes to scaling up a business, and an expo like this can help attendees learn. I encourage all Black business owners to learn more about the Black Collective and the expo. Registration for the event is now open, can be done by visiting mocoblackcollective.org. It's simple. Other good news, next week, Saturday, February 24th, will be the grand opening of the Silver Spring Recreation and Aquatic Center. The design and building of this facility is one of DGS's largest construction projects within the last 5 years and marks a significant milestone for the county. The residents of Silver Spring and nearby communities have been anticipating the opening of this facility, which will have many amenities and activities. The $55 million facility with 120,000 square feet of public recreation space is the first county recreation center in downtown Silver Spring. In addition to the new swimming pool, there will also be fitness rooms for dance, arts, senior programming, and more. It will give neighbors, including seniors living at the recently opened The Leggett, a new resource for staying active and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. The public is welcome to join us for the ribbon cutting at 10 a.m. or wait until the doors open at noon that day. And I can't wait for everyone to see this new community center. I want to congratulate Nina Ashford, who was approved by the county council this week to become the county's new Chief of Public Health Services. DHHS is the largest department in the county and is responsible for addressing the needs of our community's most vulnerable children, adults, and seniors. I'm excited for Nina to get started working for Montgomery County residents. Meanwhile, hospitalization rates tied to COVID continue to fall across the state. Transmission rates are also falling, and one indicator going in the opposite direction, though, is respiratory illness visits to outpatient clinics, outpatient centers. Clinics are especially seeing school-age children during these appointments, which follow recent national trends. In Montgomery County, hospital visits tied to COVID-19 are also down compared to last week, but other signs like wastewater surveillance show that the virus is still active. If you're feeling sick, please isolate yourself until you're feeling better and are no longer symptomatic. Getting a vaccine is the best way to protect yourself and limit the spread of all respiratory diseases. And you've got the flu vaccine and RSV out there right now, as well as COVID vaccines. So there are 3 you probably should be taking. Libraries in our area are slowly getting more COVID-19 test kits back on the shelves for pickup. So please check for them next time you visit your local branch. And now I'd like to turn it over to our health team for their comments before I take any questions from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. I don't have anything else to add. I think you've covered it. We are still seeing people go to our outpatient centers with respiratory illnesses, but the inpatients are declining. We're looking forward to working with Dr. Ashford in public health. And we want to thank Dr. Christopher Rogers for helping to steer the ship over the last year. Dr. Bridges, do you have anything additional from the HHS side before we go?
Nothing from me, Mr. O'Donnell. Thank you for those updates, and thank you for the acknowledging Dr. Ashford joining a great public health team and Dr. Rogers' continuation as a sound community policy officer with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you, gentlemen. Members of the media, we're going to open it up now for general questions, public health, any other topics. As I see Marianne Shassad from Montgomery Community Media has her hand up. Good afternoon, Marianne.
Good afternoon. Thank you. So for Mr. Elrich, I wanted to ask about MCPS and the council meeting last week with MCPS and the Inspector General, and specifically the less redacted Jackson Lewis report that was put out shortly before the meeting. There was criticism from the council on it, taking months for the less redacted version to come out. So wanted to know if you shared those criticisms, and also have you seen the report?
Not only shouldn't have taken this long, it should be less redacted than it is. References numbers for people's names. And the whole point of this is understanding who did things over there and who made the decisions. And sheltering people's names is not helpful. I think, the public has a right to know, because this obviously is something that's serious messed up. It's something that extends beyond the Beetleman case and goes to a deeper, more systemic problem inside the organization. And so not being blunt about who were the decision makers that led us into this rabbit hole is challenging. And, I think there are concerns that you may still have people around who were part of that. So I kind of share the concerns. I think it's, saying that, there are definitely problems in the system and the way information was handled, but at the end of the day, it was human beings who made the bad decisions, not the system. And I think people have a right to know who was responsible for much of this stuff. That's kind of how I felt about it, and like I said, I've been pretty blunt about feeling the school board needs to be full-time. If you're going to have a school board, there's no point in having a school board that's just a rubber stamp, doesn't have staff, has other jobs, doesn't necessarily have the time to devote to oversight of the school system, which is what they're there for. We would be better served by having a full-time board that was paid properly and had staff so they could actually do the job that people expect them to do. But I felt for years the school system had the ability to do this. They were the ones that controlled the budget. They could have said, this is our priority. We want these positions put in here for staff. And over the years, they never did it. So this would be a good year for them to decide they'd like to have the kind of tools that they need to be more effective in the job they're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne. Members of the media, any other questions? Please raise your hand. Any more questions for the officials today? No more questions? Going once, going twice. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Secretary Montero. I see you stayed through the end of the presentation. Thanks for joining us today once again. And stay safe. We'll see you next time. Good afternoon.
Thank you.